Okay, so our goal is going to be to write equations for parallel lines. And the first thing that we're going to do is we have on here graphed, let's look at this equation. The original line is the equation y equals, let's look at the slope. It's going up 1, right 2, so the slope would be 1/2 x. And the y-intercept is going down, so that's minus 1, 2, 3, 4. So y equals 1/2 x minus 4. So that's the original graph, or the original line. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we are going to put a point. So that was our step 1, was to graph that. That was graphed for us. We are going to plot the point. -6, 5. Now when we go to plot this, you're going to go to the left 6, up 5. Now what we want to do is we want to construct a line that is parallel to this line going through that point. Okay, so step 3 is going to be to construct a line parallel to the y equals 1/2 x minus 4 line through that -6, 5 point. So we're going to use our compass here. The first thing that we're going to do is we are going to draw that transversal. And now what we're going to do is we are going to measure this angle by drawing the arc. We're going to copy that arc. Now notice, since my arc was too far past, I'm going to have to extend that transversal. That's okay. I'm just going to have to extend it. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I need to measure how far this arc goes before it hits that line. So I'm going to measure, I'm going to move this to make sure that it goes through that arc. I'm going to come up here, I'm going to go through that arc, and there I can see where that point is going to be at. So what I'm doing is I'm going to be drawing this in. And what happens is, let me extend this y-axis here. But I want you to notice the lines that are parallel. Okay, and what do you notice about the slopes? And we're going to try to write the equation for the new line. So this new line, I'll highlight it, orange. Use that orange line. Okay, so this line right here, the new line, the equation is y equals, now pay attention, look at what the slope is. You'll notice that that slope is up 1, right 2, just like this was up 1, right 2. That's how it's parallel. Down 1, left 2. And so this line is also 1/2 x, but where does this one hit? This one hits at 8, so plus 8 would be your y-intercept. So our new equation is y equals 1/2 x plus 8. Now, do we have to construct it every time? No. Do we have to graph it every time? No, but the main idea here is what we figured out by constructing that parallel line is lines that are parallel are going to have the same slope. So, are these lines parallel? Well, the slope of this first one is 2. The slope of this second one is -2. Are those the same slope? No. So those are not parallel. They would intersect. Let's look at the next one. Now the next one, you can't tell what the slopes are because they're not in slope-intercept form. So we're going to have to do a little work here to change it, okay? So when we're looking at MN, we're going to have to take our 4y equals -8x plus 16. We're going to have to divide everything by 4. We're going to get y equals -2x plus 4. Okay, so this is line MN. Okay, then we're going to have to look at the next line. We're going to have to get y alone. So subtract 4x on both sides. We're going to have to divide by 2 in all those terms. Okay, so MN, this is KJ now. Line KJ is y equals -2x plus 5. So now that we have these two equations written in this form, we can look and we can say, okay, well this slope is -2 and this slope is -2. So yes, they are parallel. Okay, because the slopes are the same. But you're going to have to do a little bit of work in order to identify what those slopes are on one like this, where you can't obviously look at it and see what the slope is. So if you flip it over, write an equation. Now this is a review problem. We did this in 3.5. We had to write an equation with the slope of 2/3 going through a specific point. And that point that it's going to go through is 9,4. Now that would be generally given to you. Okay. Now there's two different options you can go about this. You could write it in point slope form, or you can write it like y equals mx plus b and find it. So it depends on what you want to go with. Our final equation needs to be y equals mx plus b. That's slope-intercept form that we use most often, okay? But you could start with point slope form. That would be an option. Or you can start with what you know here, which would be y equals 2/3 x plus b. Now that equation is almost done, we just don't know what b is. So what you can do though is you can use this 0.94 and plug it in. We know we get 4, and we know we plugged in 9. And write out the rest of the equation. Equals 2/3 x plus b. We still don't know what b is, but if you plug in that point, when you plug in 9, you know your answer, or your y value has to be 4. We can take this then and solve for b. So then what we're going to do is when we plug in 9, we know that y is 4. So what we can do now is we can solve for b. So 2 times 9 is 18. 18 divided by 3 is 6. So that's what that turns into right there. Subtract 6 from both sides. You're going to get -2 equals b. Now that tells you another part of our equation. We already knew what the m had to be, because it told us m is 2/3. Plus, we know what b is now, it's -2, so we can write -2. So that would be our final answer. That's the equation for the line that has a slope of 2/3 that goes through the point 9,4. And we could check that now. We could take our calculator and we can plug in 9 and make sure we get 4. So if we type in 2/3 times, plug in 9 for x, -2, we should get 4, and we do. So we know that that equation is correct. Okay. Now, if you want to use point-slope form, this would be your x1, y1, and there's your m. So we have y minus 4 equals 2/3 times x minus 9. And then what we would do from here is you are going to have to distribute that slope to get rid of those parentheses. So we would have y minus 4 equals 2/3 x minus 2 times 9 is 18. 18 divided by 3 is 6. And then you need y alone, so you'd have to add 4 to both sides. Y would then be alone on the left equals 2/3 x minus 2. And that would be your answer. Now notice we got the same answer. It didn't matter which route we took. So if you like option 1, go for option 1 every time. If you like option 2, do option 2 every time. Right? It does not matter which option you take. Next, we're going to write an equation for a line that's parallel to this line here, y equals 3/4 x. Y equals 3x minus 4. And it has to go through the given point. And that given point is going to be -2, 7. So that would have been given to you. So writing an equation for a line parallel to this equation and through this line. Well, we need to have some key information. So you're going to have to figure the key information out first. If it has to be parallel to this equation, then your slope must be the same. So if this slope is 3, that slope would also have to be 3. We also know that it has to go through this point, -2, 7. So there's the key information. Now that you have this information, we forget about all that stuff up there. We know a point and we know the slope, and we're going to write an equation for a line with that slope through that point. Okay? You can take route 1, which was the point slope form, where we're going to plug in m is 3. The y1 would be -7, and the x1 is going to be adding 2, because remember they show up opposite and the point as they do in the equation. Now, we have to solve this so we get y alone. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to distribute that 3 to get rid of the parentheses. Next, you're going to have to add 7 to both sides to get y alone. Y is now alone on the left, plus 13. Y equals 3x plus 13 is what we end up getting. Now, that is the equation for the line that is parallel to that first equation, but it goes through this point. Now, we got to make sure that it goes through that point. So let's plug it in. If I plug in -2, 3 times -2 plus 13, I should get 7, and I do. So make sure your equation actually works, okay? Now when I do it the second way, I'm not going to have to check it again because I already did it. You do not have to do it both ways every time. I am showing you both ways right now so that way you have the choice, okay? If I'm trying to write it in the form of y equals mx plus b, I already know that my m is 3, but I can't write it like this because I don't know what b is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to plug in the x and y that I do know, because I know if x is -2, I'm going to get 7 for y. And what I can do is I can figure out what b would actually satisfy this equation. 7 equals -6 plus b. So to get b alone, we're going to have to add 6 on both sides. B is then alone on the right. 7 and 6 is 13. Well, we already had y equals 3x plus b, but now we know b is 13, so we get y equals 3x plus 13. That's how we write equations for parallel lines.